called Ravenhurst on record there. Either a clerk typist from an administrative corporal Chadwick came by to ask me about the mysterious Marine. Upon returning to his desk, Chadwick completed an IRC card and condensed record, which would have to do with Ravenhurst's entire file, arrived from his last duty station, Marine Barracks, East British Outer Cambodia. An unusual man, this Ravenhurst, with his IQ of 157. How many other truck drivers spoke 17 languages, but 10 years in service had never been recommended for a promotion? You would imagine that one glance at such statistics would arouse suspicion. But some days later, there occurred within my earshot a conversation between two lieutenants and the swaggering staff sergeant who headed basic training, who, so as to protect his identity from ridicule, I shall call Karen Elliott instead of Sergeant Garcia. Where do you figure he learned 17 languages, including Upper and Lower Swahili? One of the officers wondered aloud. I'll bet his parents were missionaries, contributed Karen Elliott. Most men make private first class in about 6 months. This guy has been a private for 10 years. I'm going to recommend him for a promotion, announced the lieutenant. Yeah, the lieutenant. You better have a talk with him first, sir. Karen Elliott warned. You just never can tell with them intelligent guys. Chadwick, who was lurking nearby, suddenly shouted, "There he is! That's him! That's Ravenhurst, right there!" A big chunky truck driver whose nickname was Buddha happened to be dampening the dust in that vicinity with a water tank equipped with a sprinkler in the back. Eager to score points with the officers, Karen Elliott ran over and yelled at the Buddha. Buddha stopped the truck and shut off the engine and then said, "What? You won't grow any grass that way," Elliott repeated with a weak laugh. "Oh," spake the Buddha before starting up the truck again and driving off. Stories like that spread rapidly, and so did the Ravenhurst one. On his behalf, I, for my part, answered a survey on improving basic training, more realistic combat conditions on the obstacle course, and field training in venereal disease control, where among his recommendations later on, I added to our files an application by Ravenhurst for officer training school. Reason: I have been private for 10 years, so the only way I expect to be promoted is if I try for second lieutenant. Across the page was stamped approved. Nevertheless, for some unexplained reason, Ravenhurst remained a private. After I was discharged, I ran into Bud Simcoe, who remained in the same unit a short while longer than me. About a month after you mustered out, there was a dress rehearsal for the biggest inspection of the year. By then, Ravenhurst had a wall locker with his name put on it and a bunk. Somebody even added a touch of realism by putting an old size pair of six shoes with holes in them under Ravenhurst's bunk. There was only one other guy in the cubicle. He was pretty bent out of shape because Ravenhurst was never there in the mornings to help sweep. Once or twice he even brought it up with the top sergeant. When the big day came, even shut down radar center. They even shut down the radar center. Everybody had to stand inspection, no exceptions. Colonel Fenderson at the top, sergeant walked down the aisle, inspecting one cubicle at a time. It was junk on the bunk, he added, indicating that the most thorough inspection there is, with every piece of gear spread out neatly on the bunk. Only one bunk with bedding on it was empty. Only one man was missing. They wanted to know who Ravenhurst was, and more importantly, where he was. Nobody knows, but the other guy in the cubicle reminds the top sergeant that Ravenhurst is a maligner. Then they ask if anybody has ever seen this Ravenhurst. Private Monty Caston pipes up. Every afternoon, Ravenhurst sits right there on his bunk. Well, then, what does Ravenhurst look like? Caston stretches out both arms and says, "Oh, he's a big mountain of a man." But just then, Top Sergeant bends over and picks up these little size 6 shoes. They call up motor transport for the hundredth gosh darn time. The captain tells the top sergeant there is nobody named Ravenhurst in the motor transport. So the brass huddle together and decide Ravenhurst must have mustered into squadron without checking in with his assigned workstation. So he could just F off all the time. So they are ready to hang him as soon as they find him. A feudal base-wide manhunt was conducted for Sergeant Karen but before Sergeant Karen Elliott heard they were searching for Ravenhurst, somehow perhaps by examining the basic training files, he discovered that Ravenhurst was a hoax earlier and now spilled the beans in exchange, I'm sure, for many points. A few days later, a letter of commendation dictated by Colonel Fenderson appeared on the squadron bulletin board, congratulating Private Omar K.M. Ravenhurst for outstanding conduct. In 1968, when Robert Anton Wilson and I decided to form a conspiracy with no purpose so that 48 investigators would never be able to figure out what it was doing. I told him about Ravenhurst and invited him or anyone else he recruited to do anything, anywhere, anytime under an already ubiquitous name. We decided to call that conspiracy, however, unoriginally the Bavarian Illuminati, a caper that culminated in eventually in the Illuminatus trilogy. As for Ravenhurst, the last I heard was the KGB was trying to find him so they could make him chairman of the American Communist Party. I'm sure they got the wrong person, the wrong Fenderson. Omar Khayyam, Ravenhurst Private, U.S. Marine Corps, retired January 23rd, 1991. The magnum opiate of Malaclips the Younger, not junk mail. Principia Discordia, or How I Found Goddess and What I Did. So that was the introduction, I guess, to her when I found her, wherein is explained absolutely everything worth knowing about absolutely anything. A jug of wine, a leg of lamb, and thou beside me whistling in the darkness. Be ye not lost among precepts or of order. The Book of Uterus 1:5. Some excerpts from an interview with Malaclypes the Younger by the Greater Metropolitan Yorba Linda Herald, News Sun Tribune Journal, Dispatch Post, and San Francisco Discordian Society Cabal Bulletin, an intergalactic report of Pope Poop. This is the one that I did see online. Okay, so someone had started from reading from here, so they just skipped the intro, which who knows? I mean, the intro looks like it was written by someone else. I want to see if that other person, because their video only seemed to be 45 minutes long, so I'm not sure if they did the whole thing or did it on another let's see here.